There's been so much talk and so much discussion and so much backlash to what Amazon has been doing with Lord of the Rings of Power. We've talked about these trailers that have been absolutely officially ratioed a week after their release because the fans are standing up and saying, this is not what Tolkien would have wanted. This is not the same world. You are bastardizing this entire thing. And as it turns out, Tolkien completely agrees, at least if you take him at his own word, because it turns out that someone tried to make a movie of his Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he absolutely would not let them do it because he didn't think they would be true to his stories, because he didn't think they appreciated what he did, and they were willing to deviate so far from what he thought was acceptable. Look at the headline. J.R.R. Tolkien torched a Lord of the Rings film treatment for being treated carelessly, recklessly, and showing, quote, no evident signs of any appreciation of what it's all about. And I want to talk about how interesting it is to hear these things from Tolkien and then compare it to what the people at Amazon have said and admitted they're going to be doing with this show, because it is disrespectful and disgusting and disingenuous what they are attempting to do with Amazon's Lord of the Rings series. But let's get into this. J.R.R. Tolkien, the creator of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, torched a film treatment for an adaptation of The Lord of the Rings back in June of 1958. In letter 210, to Forrest J. Ackerman, Tolkien did not hold back his criticism of the film treatment, and it gives us an idea of what he might have thought about Amazon Studios' upcoming adaptation in Lord of the Rings of Power. Towards the beginning of the letter, Tolkien preemptively apologizes for his tone used in his commentary on the film treatment. He wrote, if Mr. Zimmerman and or others do so, they may be irritated or aggrieved by the tone of many of my criticisms. If so, I'm sorry, though not surprised. But I would ask them to make an effort of imagination sufficient to understand the irritation and on occasion the resentment of an author who finds increasingly as he proceeds his work treated as it would seem carelessly in general, in places recklessly, and with no evident signs of any appreciation of what it is all about. This is what he said in 1958. Tolkien said no to a film treatment that didn't show any appreciation or respect, treated it recklessly, treated it carelessly, and had no idea about what his stories were actually about. He continued on. The canons of narrative in any medium cannot be wholly different, and the failure of poor films is often precisely in exaggeration and in the intrusion of unwanted matter owing to not perceiving where the core of the original lies. Okay? This is what he said in 1958. I want you to compare that, right? Compare that to what these guys are saying now. So what did Amazon buy? We have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit. And that's it. We do not have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, the History of Middle-earth, or any of those books. There's a version of everything we need for the Second Age in the books we have the rights to. As long as we're painting within the lines, not egregiously contradicting something we don't have the rights to, there's a lot of leeway and room to dramatize. We took all these little clues and thought of them as stars in the sky that we then connected, listen to this, to write the novel that Tolkien never wrote about the Second Age. Do you think that sounds like someone who's ready to respect the lore, who's ready to treat it not like Tolkien described it, as carelessly and recklessly, but actually tell the story that it's supposed to mean? Does that sound like someone who's dedicated to doing that? Absolutely, it does not. Keep in mind this quote as well. It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like. Tolkien is for everyone. This is what they're saying now about what they're about to do. You think that Tolkien would have been okay with this, given what he said in 1958 when it was clear that someone wanted to make a movie that had no idea what the core principles were about, that wanted to completely contradict what he had written, that was treating it recklessly and carelessly? I don't think so. And I think one of the most interesting things is what Peter Jackson said. Now, there's definitely criticisms about the Peter Jackson films and, the liberties and the way he chose to represent some certain things. But at the end of the day, where it came from was still trying to tell the story in the way that he felt like Tolkien would like to see it told. Look at what Peter Jackson said. We made a promise to ourselves at the beginning of the process that we weren't going to put any of our own politics, our own messages, our own themes into these movies. What we were trying to do was to analyze what was important to Tolkien and to try to honor that. In a way, we were trying to make these films for him, not for ourselves. Look at the difference in approach between Peter Jackson and what he gave to us with the Lord of the Rings trilogy versus what these assholes at Amazon are doing, what these pieces of human garbage are doing. We're going to write the novel that Tolkien never wrote about the Second Age. We have plenty of room to make up whatever we want to make up and tell the story that we want to tell. And of course, we got to make sure that an adaptation of his work reflects the world that actually looks like what the world actually looks like now. Do you think that this man right here, who fucking slammed this film adaptation, would be okay with it? I think not. I think the answer is quite obvious. Tolkien would not have been okay with this. And mentioned it before, the fact that they're releasing this series on the anniversary of Tolkien's death is likely not an accident. It's very intentional what they're trying to do and what they've been trying to do to this series and this IP since they got their fucking hands on it. And it is sad, but obviously we have words from Tolkien himself that clearly shows he would not have appreciated or respected or approved of what's going on at Amazon.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.